We have quite the project today, so this is just going to be hopefully a quick tutorial showing some of the main stitches you're going to be using in this design. This is the Happy Trails design. One thing you'll note is that I did stitch beyond the, I guess, range of my hoop. That means I actually had to take my hoop off, move it around these edges a bit so that I was stitching beyond where you can actually get to when you're hooped up. So if you like this effect of your stitches going beyond, then that's what you will need to do to recreate that. So we are going to start in the back and move forward, and yeah, let's do it. So I suggest starting in the back with these mountains, beginning with the lightest color and moving forward. This back color, you're going to just use a single strand, but when you use, when you're filling these more forward hills, those will be with 2 strands of thread. We're going to be using stem stitch. I forgot what it was called there for a second. So I'm not starting way in the back. I'm just going to do this tiny little section right here. And the reason for that was because I just didn't want to have to get more thread. That's the color I had ready to go. So, but please begin in the back and work forward. So you're going to start at the top of your little section. We're just doing this teeny little section today. So we're going to go down, stitch length away, leave your loose floss above, come up in between these 2 points and pull to make our stem stitch. We will just continue in a line. Like so. My thread is the same color as my fabric. Oops. Once you get to the end, you kind of need to make this shorter here. So we're just going within our guidelines. Now at this point you can go back. I'm actually just going to start on this side again. And we're just going to fill down. And it's going to take a long time to fill all your mountains. I guess it was good I picked this color. So this is probably the smallest little chunk to worry about. The tricky part with coming back is, which you can do, it's not that tricky. You just want to make sure you come up just underneath where you went down so you're not undoing that last stitch. And I just undid my last stitch, so yeah, maybe it's trickier than I think. Because I want to make sure I'm down enough where I'm not undoing that stitch, but I also want these rows to be touching, so it's up to you how you want to do that. If you do want to just go back and forth, or if you want to go all the way back to the beginning. For this tiny section, it's not a tough decision, but you know, for that first large mountain back here, yeah, it's a long way to travel all the way back. So when you are doing this and you run into the guidelines for the trees, I do suggest at least stitching right up to those or a little bit over them, so that when you stitch your trees you won't have any gap, you'll have a little bit of overlap. So for here, for example, you'd actually stop and then start back up. Which direction was I going? Okay. I think we'll stop here because hopefully you got the gist. Okay. So again, do the outline, and then you're just going to kind of keep following that outline and echo the stitch direction for all of those. Okay. So next we're going to do some of the trees here on the back, this section here. So we're using two different colors. We have this very dark green and this kind of like army green color. So if you look at your guideline, and also if you look at the instructions, there's a kind of a nice diagram that hopefully simplifies it a little bit. But basically, on these hills here, I feel like I need to mark the hills because this is confusing. So this is the hill line I'm talking about. And the bottom of it is down here. So that's kind of like the shape we're trying to fill. So we're pretending that the sun is up here somewhere, upper left-hand corner. So when you have the sun shining on these hills, the left sides of them are going to be the lighter color. And then the right sides are going to be more in shadow. And then also along the edge of the grass, if you also add some of that darker color, it's going to help the grass pop out from the background. So that's where we're trying to go with this. These guidelines that are on your fabric and that are on the actual template, if you're transferring your design yourself, they're just guidelines as far as where the lights and the darks are. I would say the guidelines almost exaggerate the darks. And be sure not to have it very blocky. I just lost my floss. Oh, I just put it back where it goes. Okay. So let's see. Let me pull this out so we can take a little closer look here. So hopefully you can see here. So here is a section we're kind of looking at. We just worked on this little hill back here. So I'm just looking outside, and the pigeons are chasing each other for food and like wasting all this energy when they could just be eating. Okay, I will not be watching pigeons while making a video tutorial. Okay, so here we have the light side of the hill. This is all dark, but I don't know if you can see, like here's a light. So there's lots of overlap, right? I believe this is dark. So lots of back and forth, okay? Because you don't want it just like chunky. Like this is chunky because it's way in the distance. These are very distinct individual hills. This is the same hill, but it's just the shadow we're trying to create, okay? So here's my lighter color, and I liked starting on the top of my ridge with just some stitches, and you'll already have this filled in, right? Finish your background mountains first. So these will be slightly overlapping that background and look like, you know, some of the trees are a lot taller than the others, possibly. Like if you have a weird one sticking up like this, a monster tree. So in theory, like it would look better to do like the top and then come down, I guess. I mean, the only reason I say that is because then like this is what's closest to us, right? This is further away, the top of the mountain, and as it gets closer to us this way. So we want the stitches that are more towards the bottom overlapping the stitches that are more towards the top. So it makes sense to do the ones in the back first, right? And then kind of layer. In theory, that's how it should go, I guess. I definitely did not necessarily stick to that. Like, that was my intention, but I didn't always. I mean, it's easier to just stick with one color, right? Because at this point I would need to switch colors. So kind of up to you how you want to do that. I'm just going to try to fill this in best I can. And as I go closer, oh my, okay, as I get closer to myself, we're going to be seeing this overlapping. And you can do it like how I'm doing it right now, where I'm piercing down, or if you prefer, you can come up, go down. So this is essentially, you're essentially thread painting when you do this, but we're just using 2 colors. We're using a lot of thread, right? 3 ply. And you're just making a bunch of trees that are stacked back here. So when we're close to our tree guidelines, we're kind of following the same rule. We definitely want to stitch up to them. Oops, there's my blue. Let's get rid of that blue. Bye-bye. Okay. Definitely want to stitch up to them. And possibly even overlapping some. Oh, I definitely didn't get all of that blue, did I? So again, I mentioned the blue mountains would take forever. The green mountains, these will also take forever. It's a lot. I mean, this is like a nearly full coverage piece. I mean, the only section that's not stitched is the sky, which is, I mean, I guess it's a third of the hoop, but this is a 6-inch hoop. That's a lot of space. So this is not a quick project. So I don't know what kind of rhyme or reason there is to where I'm stitching or why. I'm just going to make my way back and forth, filling in any gaps. And actually at this point, let's go ahead and use our dark color. So it's going to be over here. So you can see I'm going against my rules already, right? I'm doing stitches in the back that are kind of overlapping these ones on the front, and that's okay. It's, you know, I give like the ideal directions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most convenient or realistic to actually do. So and I'm going to come in and kind of blend between these. So yeah. Sorry, that's the electric stapler in the background that you can probably hear. So you can see there is a big difference in between these colors. Like this really dark green is, well, really dark. So we just have this really stark contrast, and we don't try to blend back and forth between the two. It'll be a little harder for your eyes to process what we're trying to create here. It's again up to you how far you want to stitch over these guidelines. There's that darn blue floss. Still back there. At least we're using the 3-ply. If you don't like how much texture we have here, you can always drop down, but I think that's part of the fun of doing a landscape embroidery, is using the thread to create your textures. Try to recreate the textures of nature. So this is the exact same kind of stitching we're doing to create our grass below, which we will get to actually after this. Okay, how much more am I going to do of this? I just wanted to show some blending, and I think I've gone far enough here. So I'm going to kind of stitch up into this darker color. Just kind of blend. So you can see I'm definitely going beyond my guidelines. So what I would say is the guidelines that you have, that's like the minimum you do with the light color. Like that solid light, and then work into your shadowed section with some of these smaller stitches to just kind of lighten it up. That was a weirdly placed one, but that's okay. Let's see. I don't know what's going on with you. Okay, see how it's starting to kind of look a little better there. We can kind of pretend that we're looking at trees in the distance. So all of this would get filled with this lighter color, and then we'd have some of the darker from below coming up. Okay, all right, let's move on to the grass. All right, so once you've completed the back hills, you are going to start stitching some of the grass. So you'll notice that this sample hoop that I now have in front of you is not exactly the pattern. This was like one of my original tries at it. I didn't know what the trees were going to look like, so I just drew little skinny triangles, and I used a different color back here, and I was still kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. But there's enough stitch on here that I think it's useful to use now. So once you have that whole back section filled in, you're going to start working on the grass, and you can fill the whole grass if you want, or just go up to where the trees end, I guess, because there's this whole front section you'll have to fill too. But what I did is I did that, then I did the trees to take a break from all that darn grass, and then came back and filled in the rest of the grass at the end just to give myself a break, and I was just tired of all that grass. So it's kind of fun how we're going to do it. You're going to pick 3 different colors of green. So if you look at your instructions, you can see some like suggestions of which colors to use. Yeah, and then we're basically doing the same thing we did back here. You want to kind of overlap a little bit on your background there. And just start making stitches. And they're mostly up and down. If you want to be really fancy, you could always make the ones in the background like shorter and the ones in the front longer. I did not do that, but if you did do that, it would probably make it look a little bit more realistic. So it'd make the grass in the back look further away and smaller. So what I suggest doing is when you're doing the grass, to do like clumps of your color and kind of move around a little bit, and that way we don't have blocks. Clumps are okay, blocks are not okay. So if you go look at some photos, excuse you, I don't know who that is or why they're here. Okay, so if you look at pictures of grass, you'll see some, I don't know, clumps is right, but you'll see sections that do kind of have one color, especially when you're looking at like a meadow. So maybe there's, I don't know, one type of grass growing over here, a little patch of it, and then, oops, and then maybe we move over here and make a little patch of it over here. And then even like add some single stitches that will get blended in with other colors later to kind of break up another section. And then we can kind of come over here and we'll go around the path. So the path is one thing I don't have prepared to stitch, so I'll just talk about it. So the path, this is actually a little different than the path is in the pattern. In this case, it looks like, yeah, I used a single strand and started with split stitch and started coming forward, and that works. In the pattern, in the photo, you'll see, let's see, I did two different colors. I did the lighter color at the center of the path, and then just kind of the outline of the path is the slightly darker color. I started with, sorry, my husband's sneezing. I started with a split stitch with 3 ply in the back, so way more texture than this. If you prefer this, you could always do like a hybrid. You could start with a single strand, and basically the idea is that, you know, we start in the back with fewer strands and stitches with less texture, so that would be split stitch. So we start with split stitch. As we move forward, we increase the number of strands we're using, and by the time we get to the front, we're using we're actually using chain stitch to get even more texture. So let's see here. So here you can see those, there's some chains in there at the very, very front, so it's like lots more texture. It's supposed to be like a dirt trail, right? But I will say, if you look at it, it does look like it's sticking out more from the grass. So like this looks kind of cool because it's definitely like lower than the grass here because I did use the single ply. So I don't know, maybe you want to do that instead of what I suggested and what I did here. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, now I want to tear it down and do it more like that, but here we are. We can only do so much. So here I am just doing some grass around it. So and we can have some that kind of overlaps it a little bit. Something like that. So yeah, that's that. Pause here, and why don't we go ahead and look at the trees. So we're starting by using the dark colors. So I'm trying to think, I was going to do this one, but I think that's going to be a little harder to see. So let's do this one over here instead. So again, you could see this was one of my initial tries at the pattern, and I didn't know what the trees were going to look like yet, so I just kind of had this skinny line that I kind of avoided stitching on. In your pattern, it's going to look more like this. And if you want, you can stitch as far as I am stitching. You know, if you want to just leave a single line of unstitched here to kind of remind you where the tree goes, go for it. I was afraid that that wouldn't be enough information as far as like recreating the tree shapes. So that's going to be kind of a weird thing here because I don't have the guidelines you have. We'll do our best here. Okay, so you can start with just a straight stitch on the top. The way I stitch these trees is I just looked at, I actually took a bunch of reference photos when we were on our hike and just tried to kind of recreate the tree shapes, you know, kind of looked for the patterns and okay, blah, blah. Let's stitch. Okay, so we're just going to be going down doing rows of chain stitch. So some of these rows are, well, at the top, it's a single chain stitch. That's it. That's the whole row. And then, actually, let's sneak in just like a tiny stitch here. We'll make this one really skinny on the top. Actually, no, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be following the pattern. Sorry. Well, I'm already here. Okay. I was gonna go do some freestyle treeing. Okay. It's this, again, I can't make it look exactly like the one. But basically you're going to be doing these little chain stitches. And in this case, yeah, they're just a single detached chain stitch. And you're going to fill in your guidelines. So here's like my starting line. Here we have a chain stitch here, 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 short one, a longer one, a short one, a longer one off to the side. Maybe this is 2 chain stitches finally. Short one, a long one, or maybe 2. Okay, etc., etc. But the key is you don't want it to look like a wedding cake, you know, you don't want it to have perfectly even branches that are equally, like, you know, a big one on the bottom, middle one in the middle, and a small one on top, right? Like a tiered cake. We want some variation. Let's do 2 here. These are those alpine trees. They grow kind of weird. They're like super skinny and they're a little bit straggly looking. So you can see I have all of my chain stitches going the same direction. This is not required. This is just because they're easier for me to do that way. If you want to not do it like that, that's fine. You can always just go back and forth with your chain stitch direction. One kind of cool thing, so you know we're getting these like kind of sharper points where we start, right? But we can also recreate that on the right side with this anchor, so you can kind of exaggerate your anchor like this. So now we have kind of a branch that goes up. I feel like Bob Ross. Happy trees. My life's complete. Let's start way out here on this one. Nice variety. Who are you? I use this clamp for making my tutorials, but I'm not used to it with my regular stitching, where I can easily just flop over my hoop and see the back and figure out what's going on back there. 3 stitches. Watch out. And then maybe we'll do like a couple skinny ones in a row. Biscuit fell asleep. He's next to me. He was watching the pigeons too. But he just got so tired. He's snoring a little bit. So like this branch, maybe we'll actually do a thicker branch. So we've got, that was 2, and then I'll come out here. Darn blue. This has been a different hoop, and I'm being haunted by that blue thread. So we'll do two, 3, 4. So you can see here it's like 2 thicknesses, and then now that's getting a little bit too thick for me, so I'm gonna do like a small one. You won't have to think as much as I'm thinking right now if you're just going to follow the guidelines. If you want to ignore the guidelines and make up your own branches, then there will be more thinking required to kind of create that variety. Okay, so you're going to go all the way down your tree, and you can see how much I'm going over my other stitches, right? I'm overlapping those back mountains, the blue mountains. I'm overlapping the green hills. Okay, so next we're taking this color for our highlights on our tree. Oh, let me show you how to do that stitch first. So I have this floss ready to go. So do I have enough of it? Sort of, kind of. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate this stitch down here. They call it a palestrina stitch, or sometimes double knot stitch. I think I do it a little bit differently when I do a chain of them in this pattern. So it could be helpful to have some scrap fabric to try this stitch if you've never tried it before. So let's say this is my branch, and I'm going to come up underneath my guideline. I mean, there's not going to be any guidelines, so this line here is just to keep me in a horizontal position, basically. So okay, so now I'm going to come up on the right above that guideline. I'm going to come back up underneath where it just came down, like so, and I am going to weave down like this. There's one weave, and then I'm going to do another weave. This time I'm going to come from above again, but instead of going straight down, I'm aiming my needle to come out in between these 2 stitches here. So in between those 2 points. And I'm also, when I pull through, I'm going to make sure I have my thread going under that needle, so it's almost like a chain stitch in the sense that I'm, catching that loop. That's it. Let's do it again. So what I do is I go right into the next one, and I feel like I've seen some instruction that doesn't go right into the next one, that there's like a little stitch in between, but we're not doing that. So we're going to go up and down, down and around, through the little guy here. Oops, sorry. Kind of an awkward position where I'm in here. Okay, so we're making these like little knots. Let me get a little closer and let me actually use, let's use this color. This is my grass color. Let's see if we can get in a little closer here. Alright, we go down at that little angle. Come back up below, do the one weave, and then my second weave going through those 2 points and pulling like so. So you can see that we made our little ball there. So if you make them, this one I kind of, I made it pretty far apart. So for our pattern, like I noticed the trees kind of look like that, right? They almost, I guess it's like the tree bows, right? Like, is that how you say that? Bows. Tree bow. Tree bow. That sounds wrong. That they kind of have that texture of the balls, like, I don't know. It made sense at the time. It still makes sense. I just think it looks cool. And that's what I did in the pattern. So just strings of these. This part's obviously the tricky part, and it's getting it through there without turning your hoop. It's easier if you turn your hoop. So to finish a line, you just go down. So there I did 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do it on the tree, so you can see. So it's up to you how you want to do this. So if this is beyond it, this just isn't working for you, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. Instead, you can just do more chain stitch. So I'll start by showing that. And you can see, I'll have it centered here so you can see, like, here's a knot with the double knot stitch. 1, 2, 3, I did across. There's a single one I did. There's a 1, 2, I think. 1, 2, etc., etc. Okay, so I like to start at the top. And again, remember when we were talking about where the sun is, our sun is up here somewhere. So the light is going to be more, if you can, try to focus it more on the left side. You don't want to exaggerate it too much and only do it on the left side, because that'll look a little too stark. So it's a subtle, it's a very subtle thing. All right, so at the very top, it's so tiny up here. I would say we just do like a straight stitch. And then maybe on this branch, we'll do a chain. And you can do the whole thing with chains if you want, if you don't like these double knots. Just like that. So this is like the top of a branch, the top of a branch, the top of a branch, top of a branch, top of a branch, top of a branch. So those are where I'm aiming. And also you can even like change your branches a little bit when you do this. Like you can start out further, or you can just go straight on top. For this one, since it's kind of small, I'm just going to do like a single stitch. Like that. Just a subtle one. And then here we'll do a little bit of chain. What should we do? 1 or 2? Maybe we'll do 2 here. That's nice. It's getting a little thick here, but that's okay. All right, so we are creating nice, lovely texture. We are creating depth to our tree here with texture and color. I should probably switch over to that other stitch, huh? So let's see, let me do it here. We're doing it on this massive branch. So I'm gonna go down in my diagonal, come back up, do my first wrap. It's not really a wrap, it's a weave is what I called it, I think. Oof, now I can't see. Oh my. I lost where I was and I can't see what I'm doing. I don't have my glasses on. Okay. This weaved from there. Okay. I can't see. Sorry, my husband's on the phone. Oh my goodness. He's a wonderful helper. He doesn't know how loud he is on the phone though. Okay. It's around here somewhere. We're gonna do it like that. There we go. And then we get that ball there, like so. Okay. I'll do another one. And like so. So you can see that makes a lot more texture compared to our chain stitches here. Should we do another one? I think I'll just go down here. Like so. Etc. Okay. Oh no, I didn't grab the black. So one thing I didn't grab, I guess I'll just show you on the sample hoop, is I did add some black, and it's just with a single strand, and it's basically, so you can see one right here. It's just split stitch where we're doing the underside of a branch. So if this is a branch right here, you can see the top of it has this lighter color. You can see we built it on this dark green, and then the very bottom of it, right above the next branch's highlight, is where that black is gonna go. Okay, it's subtle. I think in the instructions I mentioned to like kind of do more of it on the right side than the left, although I'm not sure I actually did that. See this, I can't even tell that I tried to keep the highlights on the left. I mean, I guess I did. They're a little bit more, but they're not, it's not that I never did any highlights on the right. You can see here's a big fat branch. It's really light. So that's just a suggestion. Oh, and you know, I didn't mention the grass shadows as well. So on your pattern, your guidelines will look like this. So you'll have these little circles under all the trees, and that's just, I suggest doing like a little bit darker grass there. That way you'll get little shadows under your trees to make them look a little bit more realistic. So yeah, so after you finish your trees, you can come back with your grass, and you can put the grass on top of the trees, like in the very front. Like this, you can see how it's dark, and then we have a couple lighter bits to kind of ground those trees in. Okay, and then before we end, gosh, we're already at 45 minutes. Just want to show you, it's up to you where and how many of the wildflowers you want to do. I did French knots with this color. So just a quick French knot for you here. So we're going to wrap once, place your needle tip near where you just came out, pull that wrap so it's touching the fabric here, and then pull, and that's a French knot. For see that kind of purple color, I just did these not this purple color, the other purple color. I just did little flowers with straight stitch petals like these. And, you know, it's up to you where you want to put them. I did not include them on the template because they would just get covered with our grass. But I suggest making them larger and using like more ply closer to the front of the project. And then, you know, as you go back in space, using fewer ply to make tinier flowers off in the distance. So these orange ones are just fishbone, but more of an open fishbone. You can just make them that simple, or make them a little bit taller. Cute. So again, I've made the bigger ones more towards the front, and then as you kind of go back in space, you can see I used fewer strands and fewer. Here, this one's just a straight stitch, so is that one. So they get kind of like more distancy, and here these teeny little French knots with just a few strands off in the distance. So ta-da! That's it. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help. Send me an email. Let me know how you're doing. All right, take care.